So what are we going to do? As usual, the first thing to do is learn the track and find out the reference points. Okay, so just there is no use to select any specific setup here. There is no problem at all. We just select the safe setup, and we have a go slowly around the track in order to find reference points, understand where to brake, what to do, when to turn in, where to accelerate, and so on. Right. So I mean, look at the amazing details of this track. This is, I mean, Simone did an amazing job with this track. Really, really cool. Amazing track. I have to say it's not one of my favorite track. It is a difficult track, and honestly, personally, I also have issues with this track. I cannot always, make the perfect lap, but still, you cannot argue that it's not one of the best tracks ever, everywhere. So, okay, so we arrive at the straight line here, and the thing here is that the first turn is you don't really have to brake a lot. It's not like a heavy braking point. You have to throw the car in the turn and try to scrub speed slowly during the turn, because this kind of turn here is it's a double turn practically. It has two kind of turns that they are very closely linked together. So you keep turning, and slowing down. So because the first turn is pretty fast, the second turn is much slower. So what I do usually is that I want to brake around 50 meters. Okay. All right. So let me know in the chat if you can see the mouse, guys. I hope you can see the mouse now. Yes. Okay. Fantastic. So here we have the 50 meters. And we also have this orange again paint on the guardrail. I will start braking on the orange paint when I'm pretty much here. So when I'm going through the orange paint on the guardrail, like that, when I'm over that, I will start braking, and hopefully I can then slowly get my braking point closer to the 50 meters. But before that, I will start, slowly from the orange mark on the guardrail. And then the next thing I have to go here is to go as close to the curb here as possible, because as you can see, there is a lot of curbing into the road, and that curbing helps me bring more speed inside the turn. So go very, very close here. Obviously, don't go over that because the speed is quite a lot, and that will unstable your car. But go as close as possible. If you stay outside, then you risk going outside the rubber line and outside the curb, the camber of the road, and you're losing grip. So you will end up very, very wide here, and this is something that you don't want to do. So keep it as close to the apex as possible, and either there's two things you can do here: or you stabilize the car with a little bit of accelerator and then instantly on the brake, and we will see that in a minute, or you keep braking a little bit if your car is stable enough under braking, and you keep slowing down, scrubbing speed, and then when you are more or less here on the curb, you need to brake harder, because this turn is much more it's much more narrower and closer than the first one. So here you need to go down to like third or second gear depending on your car. Now, when you see this white curve here, this is where we will try to accelerate. Now this depends a lot on your car setup. If your car setup is neutral enough, you could accelerate here, and will probably make the turn. if the car has a little bit of understeer, if you are one gear down, maybe you can power oversteer it a little bit and make it slide a little bit and go out. But that doesn't mean it's faster, but at least it will make the turn. If the car goes way too much into understeer here, then it means that you're trying to accelerate way too fast, so you have to accelerate it after this white curb. So our reference points is this white curve. We will either try to accelerate it on top of that, or a little bit earlier, or a little bit later, depending on how we feel the car. But this is our mark for exiting the turn. Okay, and that's the first turn. We are going to be over the curb here, and then we will try. Now this is where the difficult part of Suzuka, the first difficult part of Suzuka start. Well, already we are into the difficult part of Suzuka because the first two turns are already pretty difficult. But here we have 5 turns, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, 5 turns, which are one after another sequence. There is no practical turns one after another, and it is of extreme importance to be very precise, getting correct lines into every single turn and have a flow, as we say. So have the correct acceleration, braking, enter the turn, apex, acceleration again, exit, braking. You have to make each one of them perfectly, because if you go too wide or if you go too late on the brakes into one of them, then it ruins the whole sequence, and that means you're losing tons and tons of time. So start with the first one, make it perfect, and then go and follow what you have to do for every one of them. Now, unfortunately, we don't have, as you can see, we don't have any reference points here. But the good thing is that you don't really need to brake hard for this first turn. You arrive like in third gear, and then you touch the brakes a little bit, and then you go into coasting into the first turn. So touch the brakes, go in, and then try to follow the line as good as possible. First apex here on the green side of the turn, of the curb. Oops, engine. And then accelerate a little bit, touch the brakes a tiny bit, and again the green here you can see. Let me go a little bit behind. The green here is the apex, so go as close as possible into the apex again. After that, accelerate again hard. Okay, you can go a bit wide here and then get back to the middle of the road. You don't have to go wide to enter the next one. More or less on the middle of the road, enter again. Tiny tab on the brakes. Maybe you don't even need to brake, depends how much speed you have and how much turning the car has. You could go a little bit on top of that curb, but don't overdo it. Acceleration, exit the curb here. Now this is tricky. This is the last turn, and it's quite tricky. You can enter this turn quite fast, but then as you go in this turn, it keeps going narrower and narrower, and the radius becomes shorter and shorter. So it is a turn that becomes slower at the exit. So you can go in pretty fast, but then as you move in, and you can see here, let me show you, you have this mark, okay? Now this mark here, you see, this one, this little, I don't even know what it is. So this mark here, you can have this mark as your point where you will need to start braking just a little bit to keep the front end inside the turn, because otherwise you're gonna end wide. Now, here's what I mean. As you can see, the turn starts to become more and more closer, and you need to keep your front end near to the curb, to the inside curb, at the right here. Okay. Now I've seen some people going wide here, like this, okay, and then arriving here, waiting a bit to take the last turn of the sequence But obviously, since they are not at the outside of the road and they are in the middle of the road, they have to wait a lot with the accelerator until they can accelerate again. Now, it is a possibility. We are going to try this and see which situation is faster. Okay, but usually what I like to do, and we will see if it's correct. I might be wrong about that. I might be wrong. So what I like to do usually is stay as close to the curb here. Okay, accelerate a bit later around here. Stay arrive wide to the middle of the road, but not go very wide here to the middle of the road, and try to go back wide here as much as possible so that I can enter this uphill turn very fast, raise a little bit my accelerator when I am on the apex around here. Okay, that will bring the nose into the curb, and then flat out and try to drive the car while it is sliding, uh, drive the car up to the outside curb here, but not let it go too wide. The line that I make is different. So I have more acceleration in the exit, and that makes me gain time. That's my impression. We are going to try both solutions, okay, and see which one is the fastest. But usually I do that one. So I prefer to have a faster exit. So this from here on, it's all flat out, so no big problems. All of that is flat out, no issue at all. And now we are pointing on the left side and 50 meters mark to have a very hard but also very short braking distance for the first right-hander here. So 50 meters, maybe a little bit before 50 meters, hard on the brakes. I'm gonna use fourth gear and I'm gonna try to clip the apex right here. So jump a little bit on the inside curb. Now to jump on the inside curb, it depends on your car. If your setup and the car can take curbs in a correct way, then you can do it. If it cannot take the curb properly, then you just have to clip the curb and not go and jump over it. Now, if you do it properly, you're gonna be very fast during all this turn, and you're gonna end up outside here. Uh, Keep on the accelerator because you want to stabilize the car, and then again there is no actual reference point around here, but if you do it correctly, uh, you're gonna be here in fourth gear, and you can see more or less this orange wall here. Now, when you are almost done with the orange wall, or a little bit sooner, that is the correct time to brake hard. Brake as hard as possible, and you can put third or second gear with the BMW. I usually try to put second gear. Again, if your setup permits, you go over the curb like this. If the setup doesn't permit you, you will go a little bit before outside of the curb. Now, this this is a tricky corner. It's a tricky corner not because you're gonna lose control, but because many times you arrive way too fast, okay, at the corner, and when you're arriving too fast, you keep braking even after the apex. Now, normally you should be in a position like this. Whoops, sorry about that. Okay, so you're gonna be in a position like this, okay, and you should be, if everything's done correctly, you should be able to accelerate from here on, okay. But usually you arrive way too fast, so you're trying to rotate the car and scrub speed down with your brakes, and so you keep braking to put the nose in, and you arrive at this point and you're still braking, and so you accelerate from here on. Now, as you see, and we saw that on the last stream, the faster you accelerator, the faster you accelerate, the better it is for your speed and for your lap times. So if you do this kind of error, you are like 4 or 5 meters later acceleration than what you should do. Again, we will see that when we will try to do the laps properly. All right, so now the exit is um, it's not so tricky, but it is spectacular here because, especially with this car, you have lots of torque and turbo lag, so you might end up a little bit oversteery here. But it shouldn't be that difficult to maintain control, even if you go over the curb. Don't go way too much over the curb because it's easy to get a penalty for cutting the road for track limits. But yeah, you can come over here like this, and what you see from up here is the long back straight. Practically, the cars are going over that, and going through the back straight and into the 130 air turn. So you are practically going underneath that. It is, the only circuit that is into a 8 figure. Actually, there are two circuits that work like this, but in only one of those circuits you can actually race. The other circuit that is 8 figure is Fiorano circuit, the private test track of Ferrari. But you cannot race on that circuit. You can drive Fiorano in some sims. I think where there is a mode, or I'm not sure if we included it on Assetto Corsa 1. I don't remember. Anyway, all right. So we move on from here. Now, the next turn right here is a flat out turn, but it is very important to take the correct line and stay at the exit as close as possible to the right hand of the road. Do not go, do not let the car slide and go outside towards left. So stay as close as possible here, and also the end of the curb, all right, is where you want to start your braking. Maybe even a little bit sooner. It depends how fast you arrive on this turn. So if you've done the last corner fast enough, then you might want to start braking a tiny bit before the end of the curve. If you've done the last corner a bit slower, then you could try and brake exactly at the end of the curve. But always be careful. So you end the curbs, and here you start braking. Now you have to be very careful here. Don't try and stay as wide as possible, moving the steering wheel a lot and doing this kind of movements, because first you wanna stay on the right, and then you're gonna go towards this hairpin here. Uh, if you want to brake in a very short distance, you need to brake with your steering wheel as straight as possible, because otherwise the ABS starts, engaging, and that makes your braking distance longer. So even if you are a little bit, out of place, or you are not exactly at the point where you would like to be, try and keep your steering wheel straight like this, even if that means that in the end, you're gonna end at the center of the road instead of completely at the right hand. So keep your steering wheel as straight as possible, and that will permit you a shorter braking distance than trying to go as wide as possible and then go into the turn. This is gonna make you arrive very long in the brake distance, and you're gonna end up at the outside of the hairpin here. Okay. All right. So now you go in, and here's the situation here. Um, if you try and do this hairpin as rounded as possible, all is fine, all is good, but you're gonna end at the outside here with the car still pointing out towards the walls, etc. And because of the camber of the road, it means that you're gonna keep turning a lot. And by keep turning a lot, it means that you're gonna have your front end on the road on. It is a little bit like a hill, so the front right end is gonna be way higher than your rear left wheel, which means that the rear left wheel has not too much weight and load on top of it. It will start spinning, and that means that the traction control will start, engaging, and that will make your exit harder. So try to rotate the car and exit this hairpin with the car a little bit rotated like this, like that. That will permit you to put down the power better and exit with the steering wheel less turned, and so the traction control will engage much less, and it will give you a much better exit from this turn. Now, all of that is it's all of this information is basic. I mean, Aris, what are you saying to us? We know everything about that. I know. I also know all of that, but it really, at least for me, it really helps to you know repeat all that stuff to yourself and do all this exercise, let's say, because at the end we keep trying to get as fast as we can, and when you are trying to force yourself to go as fast as possible, this is where you start doing errors. And errors, by errors I don't mean big errors that you're going wide and you understand, oh yeah, I fucked up, so I'm so low. No, you are doing slight errors, and those slight errors are are making you lose lots of tenths at every turn, and in the end your lap time is much lower. So repeat all those exercises, keep this in your brain, repeat to yourself that you have to do it like this, you have to do it like that, and you will see that you're getting better and better. All right, so let's move on. Now the next turn, it's no big deal. um, the only advice I can give you, it's all flat out from here on. The only advice I can give you is, try to use as little steering wheel angle as possible. The more steering wheel angle you use, the more your tires are scrubbing speed and have rolling resistance. So you are losing a tiny bit of speed, half a kilometer, uh, 2/10 of a kilometer, whatever. But you're losing a little bit of speed. So the less steering wheel angle you manage to use during all this flat out turn, the better it is for your speed and for your lap times. That's why we usually go, outside here like that and go slowly in again. And we do not stay as close as possible. So as I said, now you have to stay at the right hand of the road, and you will see here a secondary road and a piece of asphalt. Can you see that? That arrives on the right side of the road. This is your marker, your reference point for braking for the next turn. Now, as usual, I'm giving you basic reference points. Depending on the car, some of you might, brake a little bit sooner than here. Some might start the braking exactly here. Some might start the braking at the start of the green curb sideline here. It all depends on your setup, because if you have, for example, a lot of wing and you have a car like, for example, the Aston Martin V8, which doesn't have a lot of power, then obviously you have to gain speed on the braking zones and inside the turns. All right, so you're gonna brake later because you can also make the turns much faster. On the BMW, that you don't have that much speed in the turns, but you have lots of power, you are arriving here much faster, and so probably you have to brake a little bit sooner and go into the turn a little bit slower. So it depends on all that. So again, brake around here. Now, this is a quite tricky turn. Again, you have to go and turn in a little bit sooner than what you should think. If you stay on the outside, then the camber of the road will make you slide, and you will end up very wide around here, and you will be very slow. You have to turn in just a little bit sooner than what the ideal line would normally be, and you have to keep, trail braking a little bit to keep the nose in until you are around here. From here on, you can go back to the accelerator, stabilize the car, and possibly arrive wide and on the curb like this. Okay? Now, for the next turn again, this is even trickier because the next turn is uh, is the turn that brings you to the very very long back straight. So you need to have as much exit speed as possible, and to do so, you have to get the correct line. If you go too early inside, then you're gonna lose time because then you're gonna end up wide. But the problem is that even if you take a later apex, then the road goes downhill, and the whole camber changes, and you find yourself very slow at the apex, at the very late apex, and you understand that you're losing time. So you need to find a compromise here. I think I'm braking around a little bit before the curb ends here, and I try to bring the car into a slightly late apex here. This is my late apex. Now it depends again on the car. Uh, with the BMW, you have some issues. You have a very strong engine and a light rear end, and that brings oversteer. You also have lots of turbo lag, and that also brings oversteer exactly when you don't want it. So you need to try and have your car rotated when the curb ends around here, so that you can exit the turn in that way, more or less pointing this way, and then apply gradually your accelerator to make sure that you don't get lots of wheel spin from the turbo lag, from the light rear end and everything, and you don't end up, oversteering like this. It's great, it's satisfying, but it makes you slower. So you have to, if you are trying too hard, then you will see that while you're turning, and that should be your correct line, at some point the turbo lag kicks in, and you have to, rotate the car like this and correct the oversteer. If you're correcting the oversteer for way too much time, then you're doing it wrong. You have to be smoother with the accelerator. If instead you are keeping like that, and every once in a while you just correct it a little bit, this is the correct way. All right. So you end up here again, wide, and from now on it's all, straight line practically. This is I believe around here is where you're going over the track that comes underneath us. Yeah, here more or less. And we are approaching this 130 turn. Now the Formula One drivers can go inside the flat out with just one hand, the other hand saying hi to the people, drinking something, or correcting, uh, their side mirror. But we cannot do this. We don't have enough grip for this kind of stuff. Again, it depends on your car. With the BMW, I will try to brake somewhere at around the 50 mark, and we also have this mark here, somewhere inside here. And I will not actually brake. I will just tap the brakes a little bit and throw the car to the inside. Now, here's what you have to be careful around here. Now, I've seen many people, trying to enter the car. They are arriving way too fast, and they keep braking, 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 and they end up here and they still braking to keep the car in place. Now, this obviously is not so good in terms of lap time. So how I do it? Let's see if I can manage this properly. Okay. So I will just tap the brakes at around 50 meters mark, a slight tap at the brakes, and then instantly, as fast as possible, to the inside, and also touch a little bit the curb here. Now you can see the road. It has some curb. It has some camber here. So the road goes towards the apex of the inside of the turn right here. Uh, you need to be as close here as possible. If you go a little bit wide, then this is where the road goes a bit more flatter and you just lose the apex and you have to keep waiting and you have lots of understeer. Or if you are some cars that are very sensible in pitch sensitivity, they will even try to rotate and go into a spin. So what I do is when I'm around here after the brake tab, I will instantly go into the accelerator. I will keep the sixth gear, go into the accelerator, and drive all the car a tiny bit over the curb like this, over the accelerator. On the accelerator, if I do everything properly, then I will end up, here on the curb. Okay. It is a tricky turn. We will understand it better when we're going to do some laps. Now from here on, you move across the road all the way to the left, and you have to watch out the 100 meters here and here. Now, with this car, I cannot practically brake at the 100 meters. I will try to brake a little bit sooner. So depending where you are on the track, you either brake more or less here before the 100 meters disappear on your left side or your right side or on your left side, so a little bit earlier. Very hard on the brakes. Again, don't follow the road. Try to go as straight as possible with the steering wheel straight, because this means shorter braking zone. And again, for this chicane, depending on your car setup and how your car can handle uh, the um, the curbs, you are either going to jump over the curbs like this, or you have to just touch them. Uh, Personally, I will jump over that, go instantly on the accelerator, and what I do usually is soft shift short shift in second. So down from the first curb, short shift in second, so that I don't have all that torque when I'm jumping over the curbs. Right, so second here, over this curb again, you end up wide like that, over the next curb. Now, here you can do different things. If you have done everything correctly, then you're gonna go down from this right curb, and the car will unstable itself a little bit. Now, this might be the correct opportunity to short shift again in third gear. Okay, so that gives you a little bit less um, torque on the wheels, and you can control the wheel spin and not have big issues. Or you can keep the second, but you have to have the perfect steering wheel angle, because if it is a little bit more, then the turbo lag will kick in and it will unstabilize your car. You're gonna have lots of wheel spin, oversteer, and you're losing lots of time. So you have to have as less steering wheel angle as possible to keep your rear tires with enough traction. Or, as we said, you just short shift in third, flat out, and you have enough traction for the torque of the third gear. And that is the final turn here. You're gonna end a little bit wide like this, and that finishes the